theyeshiva.net.
Okay, we're up to Daf Vav Amud Aleph, the second from the wide lines. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Rav. If you didn't get a copy, please take one of the copies here. It's on this table. If you didn't get, because we're going to be using it in a few minutes. Please, Nader. You see, Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Rav. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Rav. Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Rav, Hamoitze Chametz bebeis b'Yom Tov. If somebody finds Chametz in his house on Yom Tov, and when he means on Yom Tov, not Chol HaMoed Pesach, but precisely on the holier days of Pesach, when you're not allowed to do Malacha, meaning the first day of Pesach or the last day of Pesach. The first day of Pesach or the seventh day of Pesach, Shvi Shal Pesach. What's the halacha? So it's now Yom Tov, it's Pesach, and you found chametz in your house. You moved away a couch, and under the couch you find chametz, or you open a pantry, you thought it was cleaned out, and there's a shtickle chametz there. What do you mean, whose is it? It's your chametz, yeah? You want to know what happened with bdika? Could be he did bdika's chametz, and he did beer chametz, and he missed it. He missed this piece of chametz. What are you saying? A little louder. You're saying he made the chametz hefker. You're saying he did bittul chametz. He made the chametz hefker. Okay, but even if you make the chametz hefker, you're still not to have chametz in your house, right? We don't just do bittul chametz. We also do b'dikas chametz. We don't just say the chametz is hefker. We also physically get rid of the chametz, right? It's not enough just to say that the chametz is hefker. If he was mafker the chametz, he's not over by Rabbi Monsey. He doesn't say he's over by Rabbi Monsey. He just says, what happens if you find chametz in your house on Yom Tov?
And it has a din muktzah because you couldn't sweep it out of the house if the wind.
So we'll see in a moment about muktzah. Kaifa alav sakli. So Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Rav, what do you have to do? You have to cover it with a utensil, with a keli. What's the chiddush here? Let's see Rashi. Kaifa alav sakli. The halechazi litiltule, because you can't move it. Va'afuke, you can't carry it. Va'afuke and take it out. In other words, the natural thing we would tell you to do is get rid of the chametz, destroy it, get rid of it. The problem is he can't take it out. Why can't he take it out? Because it has a halacha of muktzah. Chametz on Pesach is muktzah. What does muktzah mean? The word muktzah means, you know what the word muktzah translation is? Separated, segregated, put aside. The concept of muktzah is, and this is important to understand about whenever we talk about muktzah, Shabbos, Yom Tov, before Shabbos comes in, the Chazal made an imaginary inventory. If I would ask you to sit down 10 minutes before Shabbos and write me down on a list, any item in your house that you might use on Shabbos, and any item in your house that you're for sure not going to use on Shabbos. So, for example, ice cream is a yes or a no? Absolutely yes. Yeah. Cholent, absolutely yes. Very good. Laptop, absolutely not. A hammer. Why maybe? To use it for the proper use of a hammer. To build, not. Okay, cracking nuts, something else. But I'm saying the proper use of a hammer, not, right? So even though we don't make this list, but they made this list for us. For every Jew, they made a list. Anything that's not used for Shabbos or Yom Tov is set aside, muktzah. It's segregated, it's put away, and I'm not allowed to move it on Shabbos. So for example, a laptop, or a wallet, or a credit card, or raw potatoes, right? Raw potatoes, what am I going to do with it on Shabbos? What do you do with raw potatoes on Shabbos? Eat them? Cook them. You're not allowed to cook on Shabbos. So raw potatoes are muktzah. Raw flour, what are you going to do with raw flour on Shabbos? Nothing. On Yom Tov, you could bake. On Shabbos, you can't, so it's muktzah. That's the basic principle of muktzah if you want to put it in one sentence or two sentences. Chametz on Pesach, what are you going to do with it? You're going to eat it? You're going to give it to your dogs? You're going to feed it to your frogs? You're going to feed it to your fish? You're not allowed to. Chametz on Pesach, you're not allowed to have, you're not allowed to eat, you're not allowed to benefit from. So what's its status? Its status is, am I allowed to carry chametz on Pesach? It's muktzah. Just like raw food on Shabbos, which is not edible, there's nothing you can do with it. You're allowed to have it in your house. Here, you're not allowed to even have it. But you certainly have no use for it on Pesach. What are you going to do with chametz on Pesach? You can't even give it to your neighbor. Even if your neighbor is not Jewish, you're not allowed to have enough from it. So chametz is muktzah. What's the halacha with muktzah? The halacha with muktzah is, you're allowed to touch it, but you're not allowed to move it. So therefore, on Chol HaMoyed, Rabbi Yehuda says, I don't have a problem. Chol HaMoyed, you find chametz in your house, what do? You get rid of it. You could make a fire and burn it. You could you could crumble it and throw it into the river. You could crumble it and throw it into the ear. You could flush it down the Beis HaKisei, etc. But on Yom Tif, Rashi says, Lo chazi l'tiltulei. It's not suitable to be carried around. I'm not allowed to because it's a din muktzah. It's Yom Tif. That's the problem. So therefore I can't take it out. So what are you supposed to do? So you might say, leave it. So Rabbi Yehuda says, no, don't leave it. What you do is you take a keli and you cover the chametz with a utensil. Zokt Rashi, umihu. Now we come to the Isaac Saras, mechaven gewen. That's time to given Rashi. Umihu, beval yeira lo yavar. But I have a problem. Rashi says, this person is transgressing bal yeira bal yemotzi. You're not allowed to have chametz in your house on Pesach. This person, you're now letting him have chametz in his house on Pesach. Isn't that a big issue? Rashi says, no, that's not an issue. Why? The habatle beliboy meyasma. Because yesterday means Erev Yom Tif, literally yesterday, because this was Yom Tif, he was already mevatel the chametz in his heart. We learned, maybe he wasn't, Kedamrina lekamon, we're going to learn later that Vav Amid Beis, haboidik tzarich sheyevatel beliboy. Somebody who does bdikas chametz also has to do bittul. Chazal did not only allow you to do bdikas chametz and biur chametz, get rid of the chametz physically, they also demanded from you to do bittul. In fact, the same person who says this halacha says that halacha. Rabbi Yehuda Amar Rav says haboidik tzarich sheyevatel. So therefore, I'm not worried about bayira bal yematzeh. Why? Yesterday you already did bittul. What is bittul? According to Rashi, u'mevatel in your heart, you disengaged yourself from the chametz. You deemed the chametz useless and valueless. Ka'afra da'ara. You were mesiach das from the chametz. So therefore, the chametz is not considered yours, as Rashi explained to us. Tavdal Amid Beis that Tashbisu teaches us the halacha of bittul. That you don't have to physically eliminate the chametz. You can mentally disengage yourself from the chametz and obliterate the chametz in your mind by deeming it like dust and earth that is valueless to you. So therefore, today, even though there's chametz in your house, I don't mind mitzad bayira b'yimatzeh. We learned before the Avdala that midor raisa bebittel ba'alma sagi. Min hatayra, biblically, bittel is enough, meaning you can have your chametz in your house in front of you a whole Pesach, biblically speaking, and you're not transgressing anything. Why? Because you did bittel. It's considered as though there's dust in front of you. So therefore, Rashi says, since we're assuming this person was mevatel the chametz, I'm not worried about the fact that he found chametz. Big deal. So what is Rabbi Yehuda Amar Rav telling me? He's saying, there's a new halach here. Because we're afraid that a person may forget that it's Pesach, or that you're not allowed to eat chametz on Pesach and he may come to eat it. And remember, this is a very serious caution because we're used to eating chametz a whole year. So if you just leave the bagel in front of you, or the piece of bread in front of you, you may come to forget and you may eat it. So even on Yom Tif, you need to put a keli, you have to cover it with a utensil, so when you come to eat it, you'll right away see, wow, this is being covered by a keli, and probably it will remind you that you're not allowed to eat it. On Chol HaMoed, of course, what do you have to cover it with a kli? Just get rid of it. You're good. It's not a problem. It's not muktzah on Chol HaMoed. The din of muktzah doesn't apply to Chol HaMoed. But this is talking about on Yom Tif. This is the halacha of Rabbi Yehuda Amar Rav.
Once you cover it, Chol HaMoed, maybe you should have to get rid of it. Yeah.
Once you cover it on Chol HaMoed, you're going to get rid of it. Matzah Yom Tif. That when night comes, you'll get rid of it. You can make a fire and burn it, or do the other things that we do for beer chametz.
So you can't just leave it covered.
Right, you don't leave it covered after Yom Tif because you don't have to. But on Yom Tif, you cover it with a kli, so that's how Rashi explains there's no issue of bayira bal yematzeh. And apparently he explained the Gemarah beautifully, so it's talking about a case when there was bittul chametz, and that's when you cover it with a kli. according to Rashi, what would happen if I did not do Bittul Chametz Erev Pesach? Nu Isaac? What happens if I was not Mevatel the Chametz Erev Pesach? I know I was supposed to be Mevatel, but I wasn't. I was Boidik, I did Dikkas Chametz, I got rid of all the Chametz, I thought I'm good, there's no Chametz in my house. I did not do Bittul Chametz. I did not say the Chametz should be like Offer, and now it comes Yom Tif, and I prepare, and you can do Bittul now. The din of Bittul, Bittul can only happen till midday Erev Pesach, right? The moment the chametz is not yours, it's not yours to be mevatel. Remember, bittul chametz you can only do till Erev Pesach 12 p.m., right? Because the moment the chametz is not yours anymore, the moment you're not allowed to eat it or benefit from it, you can't do bittul anymore. So now you can't do bittul chametz anymore. It's on Pesach. On Pesach you can't do bittul. The din of bittul is you make it ownerless. You make it like offer. You can only make it ownerless if it's not yours. If it's yours, the moment it's not yours anymore, you can't make it ownerless, so you can't turn it into offer. The Torah is mevatel it for me, but I have to agree with the Torah. Exactly, and I didn't do that. So I have chametz in my house now. I was not mevatel it. Rashi says I'm over on ba'ira ba'al yimotzei, right? Because there's chametz in my house right now. If I don't burn it, what would Rashi hold? What would you do then? So I just put a keli over it and I'm over by Yom Matzeh? What would Rashi hold? What do you see from this Rashi? What would Rashi hold?
Isn't it better to leave it, like you said?
You would be able to. So what should you do therefore?
The same plan. You still do the same plan.
No, but Rashi says, so that's why you put a keli. But what if I would be over on Bayira because I wasn't mevatel? Then what's mashma here?
I thought you were still with the keli. You just happen to be over on Bayira.
So then, Rashi says this is talking about a case where you weren't over in Bayira. Right. Rashi's explaining that Rabbi Yehuda Marav says you should put on a kli. Rashi is bothered. How could you let him put a kli? He's over on Bayira. You're leaving chametz in your house. So Rashi says no, that wasn't a concern because he wasn't over on Bayira. So what do we see from Rashi? Let's say he was over on Bayira. What would be the halacha according to Rashi? You have to get rid of it, right? You see clearly, Rashi is learning the Gemarah that there's no problem of Bayira. That's why he says you could put a kli. My only concern is you may come to eat it. I don't have any other concern, right?
So then it wouldn't be.
It's muktzah, but it's muktzah.
But it wouldn't be muktzah because he has to do something. Throw it out.
You're saying so then it wouldn't be muktzah. Why wouldn't it be muktzah?
Because he has to throw it out.
Because he has to get rid of it, so it's not muktzah anymore. Because he has to be mavayir it. So I'm saying from Rashi we see l'cha'oira, right, that if he was not mevatel the chametz, so then koifel of kli would not be enough. Because if Rashi would hold that even if you were not mevatel the chametz, then the kli would still be the only thing you should do. Then what should Rashi say? Rashi should say whether you were over on bayira or not over on bayira, you still could only put a kli. Rashi says the reason why Rabbi Yehuda says put a kli is because I'm not worried about bayira. But what if I would be worried about Bayira? You see how you read the Rashi, MS? It's hard to read Rashi any other way. No, putting the kli doesn't get rid of Bayira. It's still in my house. I don't see it, but I have it. Exactly. It takes care of the Bayira, not the Bal Yimotzei. Takes care of the Bayira, but I still have the Chametz. So l'chayra we have here a gewaldige chiddush that Rashi is saying indirectly that if I was not mevatel chametz, right, then I would have to get rid of the chametz, because if not, I'm over every moment that it's there. I'm bayira bal yimotzei. And by the way, you might say, well, it's not practical because everybody's mevatel chametz. But the truth is, it is very practical. Because remember, especially in the olden days, people would constantly bake in their house. People still bake in their house. In fact, they would make matzah sometimes throughout Pesach. You took flour, you took water, you needed. Today we don't do it. We prepare all of our matzah before Pesach. But very often people would bake bread, matzah, on Pesach, right? They didn't have matzah bakeries. It was not commercial. You took flour and water and you kneaded it together and you baked it immediately and you had matzah throughout Pesach. What happens if in middle of Pesach, on the first day of Pesach, you're preparing lunch? The balabasta is preparing lunch and she wants to make a gewaldike shtickle pita matzah for lunch with shwama inside, matzah shwama for lunch, right? And the baby is screaming, so she goes to pick up the baby, and of course, as it always is, You forget what's going on in the kitchen, and she comes back, and the dough became chametz, right? Now, could you do bittul? Could you do bittul now? What's the halacha? You can't. It's after Pesach. Remember, on Pesach there's no bittul. Bittul is only till Erev Pesach. So now you have a big problem. What do you do with this piece of chametz in your house? Bittul you can't do. You weren't mevatel it yesterday. Why were you mevatel it yesterday? Didn't exist. You can only be mevatel that which should exist. So bittul there was no. Bdika and beer there was no. It's right here. You put on a keli. What's going to keli going to be everyone by Rabbi Monsey? According to Rashi, it would seem that in this case we suspend the halachas of muktzah, and we would say that what? Muktzah hin, you got to get rid of this chametz. You got to burn it or do any other method of beer chametz, because if you leave it in your home with a kli, you're going to transgress by your Rabbi Monsey. That's what would seem from Rashi. We're going to elaborate in a few moments more on this, but I just want to point it out immediately when we read Rashi.
It seems like you're saying it's a kind of muktzah that you could move indirectly, or it's intrinsically muktzah and you couldn't.
It's intrinsically muktzah. Excellent questions. There are different levels of muktzah, right? We know there's a muktzah that if you need the place of the object, you're allowed to move the object, right? For example, a keli shemelachtoy le'isur. We gave the example of a hammer. A hammer is something that you usually use to knock nails into a structure, so you're not allowed to use it on Shabbos. But you can use your hammer, as you said, to crack coconuts, exactly. That you're allowed to do on Shabbos and on Yom Tov. So if you use the hammer, what's called l'tzayrich gufa, you want to use the hammer not in order to do the malacha that you usually do with it, but you want to use it to do something permissible on Shabbos, right? Or l'tzarech mekayma, you need a place, it's on your chair or it's on your bed, and you need to move it in order to be able to sleep or in order to sit down. So there's types of muktzah that you're allowed to use under such circumstances. But when you talk about unedible food that's not edible, that is muktzah machmas gufay. That is the highest level, or one of the highest levels of muktzah that you're not allowed to use you're not allowed to move under any circumstances. Chametz would be one of those levels of muktzah. Yeah. Teves asks a question, if you take a look in Teves, Koif alav kli, Afal gav, the last Teves, Afal gav deikal amandam beperikira. There's a view in Maseches Shabbos perikira, Rabbi Yitzchak, ein keli nitel elu ledavar hanitel. You're only allowed to move a keli on Shabbos or Yom Tov if you're using it for a purpose for something that's not muktzah. Here you're taking a keli and you're moving it for what? To cover something that's muktzah. Ein keli nittel. You don't move a keli ela ledavar nittel, only for the sake of something that you're allowed to move. And here you're using the keli for something that you're not allowed to move. He says, Ikelu ukmi, you can explain the Gemarah, but tzarich l'mkaimai. Rabbi Yehuda Rav is talking about, I need this keli anyway, because I have to move it anyway because I need the place. Once I'm moving it, I don't have to drop it right away, right? Once I'm moving it because I need the space of it, so I'm aplado, and I already use it to cover the chametz. Inami, you could say, or you could say that here the Chazal allowed you to move the kli because the keli itself is not muktzah. It's just you're not allowed to move the kli in order to use it for something that's muktzah. But here, the concern is you may come to eat the chametz, so therefore they allowed you to use the kli to cover up the chametz, not to use, so you shouldn't come to eat it. So it's two explanations why in this case it may work. The first explanation is much more stringent. Only if you use it moving the keli anyway because you need the space. Once you're moving it, already use it to cover the chametz. In other words, find the kli that you have to move and you're allowed to move and then cover the chametz. According to the second explanation, the Teves was no. This stringency they suspended when it came to the concern of eating chametz. Okay, so Rav gave us this halacha. If you find chametz on Yom Tov in your house, you cover it with a keli. Of course, chalamayid, he doesn't have to tell us what to do. Chalamayid, I have no problem of muktzah. I can just physically get rid of the chametz.
Muktzah also might be to Rabbanan, so you're allowing the Rabbanan to protect yourself from doing a deraisa.
You're asking a good question. Muktzah is a derabanan. So how do you enforce a derabanan in a state of the deraisa? Well, Rashi says there's no deraisa here. That's what Rashi explained to us. The bayira bayimatzi is not an issue because you did bittul. So what's the only problem that's left is? Bittul you did. The only problem is the Chazal said you have to get rid of chametz physically and you may come to eat it. So the keli will do that. You're right. That's what I was saying. According to Rashi, if you would have done bittul, and you would be over on Bayir Rabbi Yimatze, then it would seem that what? You would suspend muktzah, and physically get rid of the chametz because you don't want to transgress. Bal yirah, bal yimatzeh. That's what it would seem clearly from Rashi, and that's why Rashi explains the Gemarah, kaifel of kli, in a case because he was not over on bal yirah. He has to say the Gemarah means that. That's how his view, that's Rashi's view.
Just wanted to say, why did we say before that he doesn't own that piece of bread? Even if he forgot bittul, if he forgot to do bittul, even in his house, does he own it?
Excellent question. Even if he didn't do bittul and he didn't do beer, he doesn't own the chametz because it's Pesach. Well, that question you should ask on any chametz. Let's say I leave my house intact. I don't do any b'dikas chametz, any beer chametz, any bittul chametz. I have a kitchen full of chametz. Would I be over on Bayirah Bayimatzeh on Pesach? What do you think? Even if I don't go inside, if I go to Florida for Pesach and I leave my full house filled with chametz, I did not do any bittul, any b'dika. What's the halacha? That's a classic case of transgressing Bayirah Bayimatzeh. So you're asking a question, but it's not yours. The chiddush of Bayirah Bayimatzeh is that the Torah made it as though it's yours. It's not yours halachically, but in terms of liability, it's yours. Like a barber Rishus Harabim. When you dig a pit in Rishus Harabim, we're going to learn on the Vavam at Beis. There's two things that legally are not yours, but in terms of liability, we attribute them to your authority. Chametz on Pesach and a hazard in Rishus Harabim. It's not my pit; it's public domain. But you dug the hole; you carry liability for it if there is for the damage.
I thought you said that if you didn't do bittul and you cover it, you can't see it, so you're okay there, but it's still within.
Bal Yimatzeh. Even if you can't see the chametz, you have the chametz.
So you're still every second over.
Every second you're going to be over on Bal Yimatzeh. 100%. Till you physically don't get rid of this chametz, that it's not in your property, you're going to be over.
We inferred that from Rashi.
Well, that halacha is clear that if a person has chametz in their house over Pesach, that was not in his battle, they're over on Bayirah Bayimatzeh. That's what we learned the whole Bryce of Hayom at Beis, even if it's hidden. From Rashi, we see clearly that the only reason you put a keli, and that is enough, is because there's no issue of Bayirah.
There's no issue of Bayirah.
Because you were Mavatal already, but if there would be an issue of Bayirah,
you hadn't been Mavatal,
then from Rashi it's clear that he would have never said Kaifal of Kli, because you have a much more serious hazard than just the concern of eating chametz that is left in your house, because bittul you have done. What's halacha l'maisa if you find chametz in your house on Yom Tif and you did bittul? You're saying you did bittul. So then that's what Rashi told us. You put a keli over it till chalamayit. And if you didn't do bittul, or if it's a new piece of chametz that just became chametz now because you were baking something and it turned into chametz, right? So bittul didn't help. So according to Rashi, it would be clear that you would have to destroy the chametz on Yom Tif. In terms of halacha, in terms of halacha l'maisa, wait a few minutes. We'll discuss halacha l'maisa in a few moments. Okay, but it seems from Rashi you would be able to burn it or at least do the other things of beer chametz. Amar Rava said, there's a qualification here. Im shel hekdeshu, if the chametz belongs to hekdesh, einoi tzarich. There's no need to cover it with a kli. Why? My timer? Because mivdal b'dili minei. People separate themselves from it. So Rashi says, Mivdal b'dili minei, afilu b'choil lamud hu lifrish mimenu. Even in a regular weekday, he means the rest of the year, a person doesn't come close to hekdesh. In other words, when it comes to chametz, which we eat literally most of the days of the year, almost 365 days a year, minus 7 or 8 days, then you're afraid that what? That you may forget that it's Pesach, or you may forget the prohibition of chametz and eat it. But when it comes to chametz of hekdesh, it belongs to the Beis HaMikdash. So then, even the rest of the year, a person is used to, they have this habit, it's entrenched in their psyche to stay away from it. So I don't care if you don't cover it with a kli.
So there's a din in Megillah on, and even on Pesach, the chametz of hekdesh? People are accustomed a whole year.
Well, here we understand that you're not over on Bayirah Bayimatzeh. We learned before that what? Shalchoy ataraya, val ataraya shalacherim v'shel kavoya. So the problem is not Bayirah Bayimatzeh, but what about the problem of eating? So the Rava says, this doesn't exist by chametz of hekdesh. You could leave it intact. V'amar Rabbi Yehuda amar Rav. Another directive by Rabbi Yehuda in the name of Rav. Chametz shel nachri. If you have chametz of a Gentile, which is in your house on Pesach, you have to build on Erev Pesach a wall. And the wall should be tall at least 10 tfachim to quarantine the chametz of the non-Jew. Why? Mishum heker. in order to make a noticeable recognition that this chametz is off limits, you shouldn't come to eat it. Zakt Rashi, Chametz shel nachri, Chametz shel hamufkad etzloi, it's deposited by you. A non-Jew asked you to hold on to his chametz, but Rashi says, we have to remember, it's a case where you didn't assume responsibility for the chametz, the mutter l'shoyser, because then you're allowed to have it in your house. If a non-Jew gave you chametz and you took responsibility for the chametz, right? You tell him, here, I'll take care of your chametz, don't worry about it then, what's the halacha? You're not allowed to have that chametz. You're not allowed to have the chametz, right? That's the lo yimotzi that we learned before, that you're never allowed to have that chametz. Only if he gives you his chametz and you did not take responsibility, so then it's completely disassociated from you. He just happened to put it in your house. But really, it's completely his. It's not considered yours in any way because you did not take any responsibility. So now what's the halacha? Could you just keep it on the counter? We have it constantly, right? You sell your chametz to a non-Jew. It doesn't belong to you. It belongs to him. Could you just keep it in the open? So this is a new vart. That even chametz of a non-Jew, which you're allowed to have in your house on Pesach because you didn't assume responsibility on it, nonetheless, Rashi, you have to build a mechitza on the 14th day. Of course you have to do it on the 14th day, because on the 15th day, first of all, you don't build mechitzas. Second of all, you're already not allowed to eat it then. So you have to put a mechitza earlier. Mishum heker shlo yishkach v'yechlanu. V'lo sagile b'kfiyas kli kol shiva. And you're now, why Rashi says, why suddenly here did he decide you have to build a mechitza? Why, when it comes to chametz that you found on Yom Tif, what did Rabbi Yehuda say in the name of Rav? You put a kli. When it comes to chametz of a non-Jew, I have to build a mechitza. Why don't you just tell me to take a utensil and to cover the chametz of the non-Jew? What happened? The answer, of course, is just two things. First of all, in the first case, I can't build a mechitza because it's Yom Tif. You're not allowed to build a partition or a wall on Yom Tif, right? It's part of Meleches Boina. You're not allowed to build on Yom Tif. A second reason is, over there, how long am I going to keep the chametz under the utensil? Just a couple of hours. The moment nightfall comes, Mitzvah Yom Tif, I'm going to burn the chametz. Over here, how long am I keeping the chametz of the guy in my house? A whole Pesach. So this is two reasons why he changed. He didn't say just do a keli. First of all, do a mechitza. Because in the first case, I can't do a mechitza, it's Yom Tif. In the first case, I also don't need to do a mechitza, even if I would be able to, because it's only a couple of hours. But here, where I could build a mechitza, because it's Erev Yom Tif, and it's going to be 7 or 8 days, therefore he says you should have a mechitza. Zok Rashi. It's not enough for kfiyas kli to cover the keli on this chametz of the guy, kol shiva, all of the 7 days. In the previous one, you can't build a mechitza because it's Yom Tif. It's also 1 day. And at night, you will eliminate the chametz. And Rabbi Yehuda Marav continues, Vim shal hekdeshu. What if this chametz is hekdesh? Eino tzarich, you don't have to build a mechitza. My time, why? Mivdal b'dili inish minei. Once again, people are naturally segregated from it, and therefore you don't have to build a mechitza. So these are two separate halachas. One was talking about finding chametz in the middle of Yom Tif. You put a kli, but Rava said not on hekdesh. The second case is not finding. Before Yom Tif, you already have chametz because a guy gave you chametz and you were makabel chametz. Or hekdesh's chametz is in your house. And in this case, you have to build a mechitza, but again, not by hekdesh.
By hekdesh's chametz, does anyone sell it, or it just remains?
It's not yours to sell. It's completely not yours to sell. It belongs to the Beis HaMikdash. So you're good. Stama ha'ara, I want to point out to you, think about this. In the first case, when we spoke about finding chametz and Yom Tif, who's the one who said that if it's hekdesh, you don't have to cover it with a kli? Rava. In the second case, who said it? Rabbi Yehuda Marav. Why in the first case, the first one who said his view didn't add with hekdesh, and in the second case, he himself added with hekdesh? What's the svara? You see the change? In the first case, Rabbi Yehuda Marav says if you find chametz and Yom Tif, cover it, and Rava says, but not a hekdesh. In the second case, he himself says already both. Okay, a ha'ara. Ha'ara.
Maybe because he was the first one that says kaifal.
Rabbi Yehuda Marav said kaifal of kli, he could have added, but if it's hekdesh, you don't have to. Just like he added it in the second case. The first case, only Rava says it in the second case. When you learn Gemarah, you should stop with these things.
What's the reason?
At least notice it.
What's the reason for hekdesh? No one's going to eat egg, right? No one's eating that.
In other words, chametz is something we eat all year. Let's take another example. Lahavdil on the other extreme, a shtik chazer. A yid runs away from a shtikl chazer. We're not afraid. But a nice shtikl schnapps. He has it's Yom Tov. Will sagen a bissel Chaim. Nu Slivovitz, Smirnov. What's the difference? But chametz is not a shtik chazer. That's the point. The truth is, today it became a shtik chazer because of all of this. You remember we learned the first Teves. Teves says, why did they make bdikas chametz and beer chametz? You could do bittul. Shema yaveh la'achlei. That's what entrenched in the Jewish psyche to run away from chametz. If not, if the whole preparation of Pesach would just be being mevatel chametz, it would take 2.5 seconds, and we wouldn't have that allergic response to chametz. Today, chametz Pesach is a shrek lechazach. It's all because of these takanas. They made it so. They made it so reprehensible that a Jew eats chametz. I told you when I learned the first Teves, one of the boys said, "Nobody's going to eat chametz. Nobody's going to eat chametz. It's ridiculous." I thought, "Oh, Zestu, Teves was right. Thank you. Teves was right." Huh? Okay.
So again, follow up his question.
Say over everything, so you'll remember everything. Say over everything.
I have to get the story.
It's because people
The
are
marshal.
accustomed to it, meaning they're not
Yeah.
reviling. It's
Yeah.
not because, like I asked, that there's a din the Elon.
Right. No.
It's because they're not accustomed.
Yeah. Pashat customed. Yeah. As Rashi puts it, afilu b'choy lamud hu lifrish mimenu. Lamud from the word habit. He's accustomed to separate from it. Okay. Now, here comes the challenge. The real challenge is when somebody opens up Shulchan Aruch, Hilchos Pesach, Oira Chaim Simen Tov Mem Vav, where this Gemarah is quoted halacha l'maisa. The Shulchan Aruch says that if you find chametz on Yom Tov, you always put a kli over it. And the language of the Shulchan Aruch indicates no difference if you were mevatel the chametz or you weren't mevatel the chametz. This is also the language of the Rambam. Could you again give me one of those Rambams over there in Zmanim? You see, it's the right, should be a Zmanim. A großen Dank. I just want to quote to you how the Rambam puts it in Hilchos Chametz Matzah. He says as follows. I'm going to read to you a Rambam, Hilchos Chametz Matzah, chapter 3, Halacha Ches, says the Rambam. If somebody was not mevatel chametz before Pesach, before Erev Pesach midday, right? Before 6 hours, and a person finds chametz, which he knew about, and then he forgot during the beer, and he was never mevayer this chametz. The Rambam says you're over by Rabbi Monsey because you weren't mevayer, you weren't mevatel. Bittul now will not help you because the chametz is not yours, and the Torah makes it as though it's yours, that you're liable, so you can't do bittul. So you cannot do bittul. So what do you do now when you find chametz in middle of Pesach or Erev Pesach after the time of bittul? So the Rambam says chayav levarei b'chol eshiyim tze'enu. Whenever you find your chametz, you have to be mevayer it, and if not, you're going to be over on by your Rabbi Monsey because you cannot do bittul. V'im motzei b'yom tov, and if you find it yom tov koifel of kli ad le'erev mevarei, you have to put a kli over it and be mevayer it. Clearly, the Rambam is talking about in a case where he says clearly there was no bittul, and you find the chametz on yom tov and you put a keli over it. But if it's hektish, you don't have to put a keli because everybody goes away from it. Suddenly, here we see an opposite perspective than Rashi. Rashi said the reason you could put a keli on it is because you did bittul. The Rambam indicates almost clearly, intimates, as the Mefarshim say, the Magen Mishnah says, that the Rambam holds, even if you did bittul, even if you did not do bittul, because that's what he's talking about in the beginning of the halacha. So he says, whenever you find chametz, you have to get rid of it immediately, because if not, you're over on by your Rabbi Yimatzeh, every moment. On Yom Tif, you put a keli on it. It sounds from the Rambam, even if you did not do bittul, so you're over on by your Rabbi Yimatzeh, you cannot touch this chametz. You have to put a keli over it. How do we understand the logic of this? That basically the rabbi said, don't touch the chametz, be over on by your Rabbi Yimatzeh, and leave it in your house until Mitzvah Yom Tov. And that's how the Shulchan Aruch, la halacha, puts this halacha in Hilchos Pesach Simen Tov Mem Vav. So let's see This generated a fascinating discussion in halacha about the two perspectives: Rashi's perspective versus the Rambam's perspective. The Gemarah doesn't say clearly. Medrash says if you find chametz on Yom Tov, you have to put a kli. Is Rav talking about with bittul or without bittul? Rashi says he was talking about with bittul. Maybe he wasn't talking about with bittul. Maybe he just says if you find chametz. It's true. Rav himself later says you have to be mevatel. That's a good support to Rashi. Rav is the one who says you have to be mevatel. But it could be also didn't do bittul. Rabbi Yehuda Marav says you have to do it. Maybe he wanted you should do it because of these concerns. Or this is part of the concerns, as we'll see later in the Gemarah. But what happens if there was no bittul?
I think I was talking about whether he sold his chametz. I'm talking about bittul. What about?
Excellent question. If the chametz that you found you sold, right? So probably you didn't find it because the pantry that you sell to the guy you didn't find. But if it's chametz that doesn't belong to you, it belongs to a non-Jew, right? And you didn't assume responsibility for it. Or as we learned earlier, according to Teves, even if you did assume, but it's in a corner in the house that's segregated and isolated, then it's not a problem, because then you're not over by your Rabbi Monsey, even if you leave it there a whole Pesach. We're not talking about that. Chametz that doesn't belong to you, right? We learned here you're allowed to have in your house over Pesach. You just have to put a mechitza. But if you put a mechitza, you're good. And even if you don't put a mechitza, you're not over by your Rabbi Monsey. It's just Rav didn't want you should have it because you may come to eat it. So we're not talking about that. We're talking about chametz that you could be over by your Rabbi Monsey if you weren't mevatel it. And even if you were mevatel it, you still have to get rid of it because the Chachamim wanted you shouldn't have chametz in your house in Pesach, right? So you still have to do b'dika and bi, or even in the middle of Pesach. Clear?
It's clear, but it's like you're selling your chametz and you forgot that there was a piece of chocolate bar on the.
Any chametz that you sell does not go into this halacha. We're not talking about chametz that you sell. You also have to remember that in these generations, they did not sell their chametz like we do today. People had very little chametz. The whole business, the whole concept of selling chametz commercially, every house and every city and every Jew, started only in the 1500s. Mamish, not a long time ago. I mean, relatively speaking, not a long time ago. What precipitated was Jews in Eastern Europe who started to make an income through owning what we would call today kretschmas, what we would call today inns, bars, where they would, pubs basically. This was a huge source of revenue for Jews in Poland. They would call them mashkes, and they had a huge problem. The problem is, what are they supposed to do before Pesach? What are they supposed to do? To get all Gentiles to finish all the mashke by Erev Pesach was quite a feat. It was very impossible. To sell them all, the Gentiles were smart. Wait Erev Pesach, and you're going to get them all for a half a ruble, right? And the poor Jew is going to lose all of his money. To get rid of it all and destroy it all would be a tremendous financial loss. So the Jews then turned to the rabbinic authorities of the time. Most prominently was the Bach, the rabbi of Krakow, Rabbi Yoel Sirkish, known as the Beis Chodosh, right, who wrote a commentary on the Torah, and other contemporaries, and they developed the process known today as Mechiras Chametz, which became entrenched in Jewish communities. Even today, if you don't own an inn, because of the quantities, Baruch Hashem, we have quantities and quantities of chametz that Jews didn't even begin to conceive of during these days. So the whole concept of sale chametz, the way we understand it, has been developed only later. The principle was there before. We're going to learn a Mishnayos about selling your chametz to a guy. But that's just selling a little piece of chametz that you have. Okay. But we're not talking about that. You're right. That chametz that you sell doesn't go into this category because that you could leave in your house. You don't have to get rid of it. It's not yours to get rid of. You understand?
Hide it in a good way, but I'm saying, right.
You have to quarantine it. You have to put a mechitza. Yeah, that's what we do. You tape it off. You put a mechitza. You're not supposed to have chametz of a guy exposed in front of you, but not because you're not allowed to have it. You're allowed to have it. The Chazal were afraid that you may come to eat it. Well, what are you taping? You're taping a closet, you're taping a pantry, you're taping a cabinet, you're not just putting a piece of tape. Yeah, if you put a Cheerio box, a box of Cheerios on your counter, you put a piece of tape, that's not a mechitza. Not only a keli, you need a mechitza of 10 tfachim. 10 tfachim would mean between 30 and 40 inches. It has to be behind a wall of 20 or 30 or 40 inches, 10 tfachim, minimal. I don't care if it doesn't have to be so tall, but it has to be 30 or 40 inches behind that wall. If you have a cabinet, that's fine, that's a mechitza, that's good. The point is, it has to be a mechitza, but not of 8 tfachim or 5 tfachim, a little mechitza. It has to be a taller mechitza, so there's a real hecker. If I want to get to the food, I'm going to bump into some type of partition, which is going to remind me and say, halt, it's Pesach. Take a look now, Hilchas Pesach. This is a copy from Shulchan Aruch Harav, the Shulchan Aruch of the Balatanya. Hilchas Pesach, Siman Tov Mem Vav, Seif Hey. Here, he both compiles, explains, defines the halachas relative to this Gemarah that we just learned, with also a uniquely gewaldige chiddush. Sif Hey. I'm going to read a little fast because I want to cover the two Seifim, Seif Hey and Sif Vav Be'ezer Hashem. At least most of it. Ve'i Matzah, you see Seif Hey, Hilchus Pesach Taf Mem Vav, Seif Hey. The source sheets, by the way, are always posted on the yeshiva.net, on the Shir, the Gemarah, as well as today the Shulchan Aruch. At least it was supposed to be posted. Should be there. Ve'i Matzah, if anybody wants the Chazer, etc. Ve'i Matzah chtichas chametz bebeis b'yom tov b'Shabbos. Somebody finds a piece of chametz in your house, Yom Tov or Shabbos, meaning on Pesach. Afilu yesh b'kazayis, even if it has a kazayis, meaning it's not a little tiny crumb, it has the volume of an olive. Lo yivarenu boy b'yoyim. Do not destroy it that day. Cover it with a utensil till the night to cover it from the eye so you shouldn't forget and eat it. And at night you're going to eliminate it. That's mamash a quote of Rashi who said, Ba'erev u'balayla yivarenu. Bamed varim amurim. Here we come to the klitch. When do you say this? B'chametz shenis chametz koidim shebitul chemtze b'yudalit. Chametz, that was already chametz before you did bittul on the 14th. So you're not transgressing by your Rabbi Yamatzim in Atayra. Why? Because you already made it ownerless. But what happened if it became chametz on Pesach? So your bittul from yesterday didn't help. According to this view of Rashi, you would destroy it even on Yom Tov, in order that you shouldn't transgress by your Rabbi Yamatzeh. This is the shitta of Rashi, as the Beis Yosef here in the halachas clearly says this would be the shitta of Rashi. It's also the shitta of the Ran. The Ran says it here. It's the shitta of the Smag, Hagos, Maiminis, and the Tur, who says it in the name of his brother Rabbeinu Yechiel. He has all the references in footnote Lamed. All of these Rishonim from Rashi to Rabbeinu Yechiel quoted by his brother the Tur. The Tur was written by Rabbeinu Yaakov Baal HaTurim, the son of the Rosh Rabbeinu Asher, and he had a brother Rabbeinu Yechiel. Rabbeinu Yaakov had a brother, and he says this was the view of my brother Rabbeinu Yechiel, that what? Get rid of it on Yom Tov. The Ketzat Mavari, what do you do on Yom Tov? Here's the choice. Im yesh lefon of Nor, if you have a river in front of your house, you're living in Monsey, by a beautiful pond or a beautiful lake, or you have a house on the river, a Gevaldik, dream come true. Yifarerenu, take your chametz, crumble it up, v'yashlichenu lenar, and cast it into the river, which is one of the methods of biur chametz. Right? Great. V'al yisrefenu, best is not to burn it. Why? Kadei lamayit b'chilul Yom Tov. As much as you can, you want to diminish violating Yom Tov, since you're not just supposed to make a fire on Yom Tov. So therefore, try to throw it in the river and you're good. V'mein lefon of nar, if you don't have a river, then yisrefenu, burn it, or yifarenu v'yizir l'ruach, or crumble it and winnow it, throw it into the ear, which is an inferior way of doing it than putting it into the river. Why? Because crumbling it and throwing it up into the ear, according to some, could be a prohibition of zoyre, of winnowing, so therefore try to avoid it. But if that's the choice, there's no river in front of you, this is what you should do. 1 second. Not violating malacha on Yom Tov, resting on Yom Tov, is both a positive commandment and a negative commandment. Torah says you have to rest on Yom Tov. Torah says you're not allowed to do malacha on Yom Tov. Ubir chametz bepesach ein boy gam ken ala mitzvahs essay tashbisu sa'or v'loisa sabayira bal yemotze ve'ein doichen esse v'loisa se mepnei esse v'loisa se. Why is chametz more meyuchas than Pesach, than Yom Tov? On Yom Tov it says you have to rest and you're not allowed to do work. Chametz it says you have to get rid of it and you're not allowed to have it. Why is the essay and loisasa of getting rid of chametz more powerful than the essay of loisis of resting on Yom Tov, to the point that you're allowing this person to make a fire? You're not allowed to make fires on Yom Tov, burn things on Yom Tov. You're not allowed to winnow it. Why you allow him to do it? The answer is mikol makom. I'll explain to you why. Kivan shemeleches have arev azraya leruach chutra b'Yom Tov min haTorah l'tzarech achila. Hutra legamri afilu shaloi letzarech achila. We have a principle, mitoich shehutra letzarech, hutra nami shaloi letzarech. For example, are you allowed to carry on Yom Tov? Am I allowed to carry my machzer to Shul Rosh Hashanah on Yom Tov, or carry a bottle, carry a key to my house on Yom Tov? The answer is, you would think, no, the Torah only allows you to do certain malachas for food. A machzer is not food. The answer is, we say la halacha like Beis, since it was permitted for oichel nefesh, so it was permitted even not tzarech achil. Ubilvat sheyeh ben tzarech Yom Tov, as long as you need it for Yom Tov, like a machzer to daven. Kegoyin letzarech mitzvah yeverish azmana b'yem k'moshes bar b'siman tav tzadikei. For example, I need to do this malacha because there's a mitzvah that I have to do today, and if not, it's going to pass. Ubir chametz higamkin mitzvah yeveris. Bir chametz is a need for the day. It's a passing mitzvah. Every moment that you're going to leave the chametz in your house and you're not going to eliminate it, you're over by Rabbi Monsey. So it's a mitzvah of the day. It's necessary. And if I just leave it, it's a mitzvah averis. So since we say since I'm allowed to put a fire and put frankfurters in a fire or cholent on a fire, why? Because I'm allowed to make a fire and burn things on Yom Tov for food. I'm not doing it for food. I'm burning chametz. But it's mitoich shehutra l'tzarech hutra nami shaloi l'tzarech. If it's at least tzarech hayoim a little bit. Why? I don't need it for the suda of the day, but I need it for the mitzvah of the day. You're not allowed to have chametz on Pesach. So according to this, of course, if you could do it without fire, he says do it without fire. Put it into the river, crumble it. But if you don't have a river, you can only crumble it and throw it into the air, which may be an issue of winnowing. You can only burn it. Do that, make a fire, or take a fire, actually, we all have fires on Yom Tov, and get that bread into the fire and burn it up. Why is chametz doiche Yom Tov? Yom Tov you're not allowed to do malacha, Yom Tov you have to rest, chametz you have to get rid of and you're not allowed to have. Why does this mitzvah seseh and mitzvah slices override this one? The answer is, I'm not overriding it. Part of Shabbosin of Yom Tov is, I'm allowed to cook, I'm allowed to burn, I'm allowed to winnow l'tzarech achila. So this is the first sheet of the Rishonim that we see in Rashi. Only if you were mevatel the chametz, put a keli. If you were mevatel the chametz, get rid of that chametz ASAP, because every moment you're even by Rabbi Monsey. Try to do it in the most legal way. If not, make a fire, get that fire and burn it.
It's not, it's oil the Shabbos inside,
Oy b'Shabbos, yeah. No, Shabbos he means put the first halacha, put the kli on it. Because Shabbos you don't say mitoich shehutra l'tzarech, hutra nami shaloi l'tzarech, because it's not hutra l'tzarech.
What are you going to do Shabbos and later these if you didn't move on from those?
Well, Shabbos you don't have the second option.
So Shabbos is actually
That's why he says later, Chametz and Chametz v'Pesach harezem mevari afilu b'Yom Tov. There's Rabbi Monsey. Because Shabbos you don't have the option, obviously, of doing the fire because it's not hutzul l'tzarech.
So it's like Rambam that it's a kula muktzah.
Oh, however, we learned in the Rambam that even if you were a mevatel chametz, you have to leave the chametz intact. You're not allowed to touch it. This is the first shita that we learned that as long as you were mevatel chametz, you're good. But if you weren't mevatel chametz and you're going to be able to buy Rabbi Monsey, get rid of that chametz.
Even on Shabbos, couldn't you throw it in the river?
If it's not carrying, if you're not going to do a malacha for Shabbos, that's fine. You mean like putting it in the Beis Hakisei, right?
Yeah, the Beis Hakisei.
Right.
It's within.
But you can't do any malacha right on
It's
Shabbos.
within the tchum.
Then you're good. That's why he says later, because Shabbos you can't do the whole heter is that you're allowed to burn something on Yom Tov for food, right? I'm allowed to put food in fire to cook it or bake it. So in order to, if there's a tzarech hayom like this case. V'yesh cholkin, however, there's a whole different shitta. This is the shitta of the Rambam. This is the Shulchan Aruch. This is the opinion of the Tur himself, not his brother. This is the opinion of Teves in a few places in Masechet Shabbos, as he says in footnote Mem. Even if it became chametz on Pesach, which means bittul never help, you can't get rid of it on Yom Tov. Afilu yesh lefon of nor, even a river, lo yesh lechen l'sham. Do not throw it into the river. This seems extreme. There's a river, you can't, forget about fire. Even a river, don't throw it into the river. That's why he says put a keli on it. The Rambam clearly says, under all circumstances, I don't care. Only a keli. Why? The kivan shechametz aser b'ano b'Pesach. Since chametz is forbidden b'ano, hareu muktzah. It's muktzah. V'aser, next page, v'aser l'taltele b'yomtiv. You're not allowed to move it on Yom Tov. Sharei einoi royu l'klum. You hear the definition of muktzah? Because it's not suitable for anything. It's useless. It's not in your inventory for Yom Tov. Muktzah. Even though the isser of carrying muktzah is rabbinic, min ha-Torah, you're allowed to move a laptop on Shabbos. Min ha-Torah, you're allowed to move a hammer on Shabbos. You're allowed to move raw flour on Shabbos. Muktzah is a rabbinic prohibition, not a biblical prohibition. All the halachas of muktzah, most of the halachas of muktzah are rabbinic. And getting rid of chametz that you were mevatel is a biblical commandment because you're going to be over on by Rabbi Monsey. So here we have an anomaly. Rashi told me, you're right. You're right. Forget muktzah and get rid of that chametz. Forget muktzah. Take the chametz, throw it into a river. Take the chametz, make a fire. Take the chametz, winnow it. Muktzah, you're going to be over by Rabbi. If you did bittul, you're good. Now, if you did bittul, I'm not worried. You're not over them. And I tell you this, I say leave it, just put a keli. You'll get rid of it tonight. Either Chachamim said you have to do beer chametz, you'll do it at night. But here's a chiddush. How can the Rambam and the Shulchan Aruch paskin l'maisa that you're not allowed to touch this chametz because muktzah? Mikol makayim. Here we come to a fascinating principle. Ha'midu Chachamim ha'midu divreim b'mkayim eser v'loisas. There were times that the Chachamim established their rules, even if it's at the expense of violating an Eseh and a Loisasa. Sheyesh koyach b'yad ha'chachamim lakor dover min ha'Torah b'sheval tasa. God has given a koyach to the Chachamim to uproot a mitzvah of Torah as long as it's passive. Sheval tasa. Through passive actions. You don't transgress it with your hands. Actively, you just do nothing and automatically doesn't happen. This is the chiddush. We learned there's a sugya Meseches Yevamis, Daf Tzadik, that there's certain authorities that were given over to the Chacham. Let's give an example. Rosh Hashanah Shechali is b'Shabbos. Rosh Hashanah comes out on Shabbos. What does the Torah say you have to do? You have to blow shofar. What do we do Rosh Hashanah Shechali b'Shabbos? We don't blow shofar. Who decided that? The Chachamim. Excuse me, God said you should blow shofar. Were you coming to say blow? So the Gemarah says in Rosh Hashanah, Gzeira de Rabbi. He was afraid people are going to carry the shofar b'Rishus HaRabbim and they're going to violate the halachas of Shabbos. You're not allowed to carry b'Rishus HaRabbim on Shabbos. They were afraid. No. So they were afraid. So that's why they took away a mitzvah. The answer is, if they have a good reason, we're not talking about they don't have a good reason. If they have a good reason, they have the authority to say, don't violate the mitzvah actively, violate it passively. What does it mean passively? Don't do anything. There's a difference between violating a mitzvah actively and violating it passively. Another example. A chalutza, a woman who received chalitza, right? A woman who received chalitza could marry a kohen biblically, but not rabbinically. What if she does marry such a kohen and they have a child? Yeah. So this is called a chalol medivrei seifrim. He's not a kosher kohen medivrei. Is he allowed to do birchas kohenim in the shul? No. Birchas kohenim is a biblical mitzvah. He has to bench, and we're telling him you can't. Why? Because the chachamim said you're a chalol, but you're not a chalol min haTorah. Here again, yesh koyach b'yad chachamim lakadom der b'sheval tas. Comes this shit and says when Rabbi Yehuda Amar Rav said this, what he was saying is that this is one of the cases where the Chazal said, don't touch the chametz. I'll be over tashbisu. I'll be over b'hira b'yimatzei. Sheval tasa. Don't do anything. Why not? Muktzah. They held on to the halacha of muktzah even in a case where as a result, they're uprooting a halacha min haTorah, which is tashbisu and b'hira. Because b'hira says, get rid of the chametz. They say, don't get rid of the chametz. Why? Because muktzah. They won't tell you to actively violate a mitzvah. But here you're not actively. You're just doing nothing. You're basically putting a keli and you're going back to celebrate. So the same, you're not violating a mitzvah. This is called sheva al tasa. What? Yoshev batma b'atalas mehila. Why?
shofar in the mitzvah essa. They don't do the mitzvah essa. Here you do and get loises.
Excellent. Shofar is only a mitzvah sessa. You're right. Here there's also a mitzvah loisasa. You're right. But all mitzvahs loisasa you mekayim through sheva al tasa. You're right. But mitzvahs loisasa, how you mekayim the mitzvahs loisasa? Right? By not having, you shouldn't have chametz. But the point is you're not doing a maisa against the Torah. You're just not doing what the Torah wants you to do, which is get rid of the chametz now. Of course, the first opportunity you're going to get rid of it, but now you're not. This is the gewaldike chiddush, how they learn the Gemarah. But now comes the bombshell. Mitoich shehutra is very nice to burn it, but muktzah. Muktzah. That's the word. Even though it's the Rabbanon maintained their Isur, even in a place where it's going to cause you to violate a Torah. That's how serious they felt. They had a reason for it. They felt Muktzah was extremely serious. Not stam they decided we're not going to blow shofar Rosh Hashanah Choliz b'Shabbos. But here is the next case, the next situation. I have a solution to all of this. You know what my solution is? Huh? Bring the fire to the chametz. Take a couple of candles, right? Take a newspaper, put it on fire, put it near the chametz. No muktzah. You did everything. Huh? So you're saying Shalom Bayis is doich hahakal. Huh? Well, you could move muktzah kol achayad, right? With your elbow, kick it. So get it out. Get it out to the portion. No problem of Shalom Bayis. Put a newspaper on fire. Make sure it's the right newspaper. And put it by the bread. Let it burn. Amachaya. No muktzah. I understand you can't take the chametz and put it in the river. I understand you can't take the chametz and crumble it into the air. I understand you can't take chametz and throw it into your stove or into your Beis HaKiseh. But I'm telling you, bring the fire there. Oh, it seemed to be a perfect solution. And you won't be ever by Rabbi Yamatzeh, no muktzah.
What if the fire spreads?
Okay, we're talking in a case where you could control it.
Control it.
Of course, in a case where the fire may endanger people, then you're not allowed
But
to.
I'm saying it's not. It's how can you control it?
What makes the fire?
You can't put it out. You can't put it out. How do you put it?
I just told you, kick the chametz out of your house and do it. Where do you do beer chametz in the morning? Before they did here beautiful commercial fires to get the police and the kids excited. Your backyards.
You move it with a sheen, it's out the door.
Yes.
And then you
Yes. Yeah, I'll tell you. You'll figure it out. That's the point.
But not in the makam that it is.
If you could, you could.
I thought you were saying don't move it.
What if you find it in your courtyard? You're right.
I'm saying you said don't move it, so I took on that you meant bring the
Right.
fire
Okay.
where-
Clear. So the Ramah writes in Shulchan Aruch that according to this opinion, that you have to put it. The Ramah says in Shulchan Aruch when it says put a kli on it, he says afilu l'surfer b'mkaimai, even to burn the place you're not allowed to. The reason for this, the Shulchan Aruch Harav is now mechadish. He doesn't make it as though it's a chiddush, but this is his own chiddush in this whole sugya, a fascinating chiddush. What is the svara of this? So let's now take a look at this piece. Afilu l'surfer b'mkaimai asr. Even to burn it in its place is us. As he says in Memvav, this is the halach in Archas Chaim, Chametz Amatzas and Mechavches, and the Ramah in Shulchan Aruch, Tov, Memvav, Sifal. Why? Afal pi she'enei metalteloi. Even though you're not moving it. Umaleches asreifu hutra l'tzarech achila. And you're allowed to burn something for food. So mitoich shehutra l'tzarech hutra nami. Shaloi l'tzarech, if it's tzarech hayom. Ein oimnim, we don't say mitoich shehutra l'tzarech achila hutra l'tzarech mitzvah. We don't say here that since you're allowed to burn something for food, you're also allowed to burn it for the mitzvah. Why? Now listen to this. It says, Avort. Kivan shemin ha-Torah efshel l'kayim ha-mitzvah b'loi chilul yom tov. Min ha-Torah, you could do the mitzvah of Bayera and Tashbisa without violating yom tov. Dahainu sheyesh l'chenu l'nar. Min ha-Torah, if there was no muktzah, you could take the chametz, crumble it up and throw it into the river. Shrei tiltul ha-muktzah eni asher l'mediv d'seifrim. Because moving muktzah is only a rabbinic issue. V'chein yochel min ha-Torah l'farer at least according to many opinions, you can also crumble it and winnow it into the ear. Okay? And he says, this is like in parentheses. I'm not going to... שהוא בויר אויכל מתוך הפסילס ופסילס מתוך האויכל. אבל כשהזויר כל האויכל רוח אין כאן ניסה מן התורה. Winnowing is forbidden on Shabbos and Yom Tov. But when? What was winnowing? You know how it worked? You harvested your grain, right? There was plowing and planting, of course, and then harvesting, and then making bundles, and then you have threshing, and then you have winnowing. What would you do? You threw up stalks, and the wind would separate the chaff, the moitz is the chaff, the husk, the klippa, from the grain, from the kernels. This is a form of boyer, of selecting, right? You would throw it up and the wind would separate the two. So that's the classic winnowing that is biblically prohibited. When I take chametz, I crumble it up and I go like this, I'm not trying to separate it. So there's a machlokes. Is it called zayra or not called zayra? But you can argue that's not the zayra that's forbidden min ha-Torah, only min Rabban. But meil ulefichach. Asur lifrut chametz b'yom tov min ha-Torah. So shaloi l'tzarich to burn. So you're not allowed to burn chametz min ha-Torah on Yom Tov. What were we saying? Take the fire and bring it to the chametz and burn it. And you're not doing muktzah. Why are you allowed to burn chametz? Because mitoich shehutra l'tzarich, hutra nami if it's l'tzarich hayoim l'tzarich mitzvah. So you're allowed to have a fire. If it wouldn't be tzarich hayoim at all, it would be biblically prohibited to burn something on Yom Tov. So he says, min ha-Torah, do you have to burn the chametz? No, you could throw it in the river. Because muktzah is only a rabbinic problem. So if you're looking at it only from a Torah perspective, burning chametz on Yom Tov would be a biblical prohibition. Because it's not tzarich hayoim, because you could do it through throwing it into the Beis HaKisei. We can't put it into the river because muktzah. But min ha-Torah, muktzah is not a problem. So if muktzah is not a problem, so then you have an easy way of getting rid of the chametz. Take the chametz, crumble it up, throw it into the river, throw it into the Beis HaKisei, winnow it. You don't have to bring a fire. You can't do it because muktzah. So you tell me, since you can't do it because of muktzah, bring the fire here. That would be biblically prohibited according to this svara. Why? Because it's not l'tzayrich, min ha-Torah. The only one that makes it l'tzayrich is who? The Rabbanan. So tell me, okay, well the rabbis don't let me take it because muktzah. So they should let me what? They should let me bring a fire here. So now you want that the Rabbanan should tell you to be oiker adavim min ha-Torah b'kum v'aseh. That they can't do. Putting this chametz on fire would be biblically prohibited. That they can't do, sorry. Because min ha-Torah, you could get rid of the chametz another way, right? You don't have to do beer chametz through sleifa, you could do chametz through throwing it into the nar. So why do you have to do it this way? You don't have to. So if you don't have to, it's asur. It's like making a fire stam on Yom Tov. I have no reason. I just want to make a fire because I like fires. Not for cooking, not for warmth, not for heat, not for beer chametz. You're not allowed to do it. So if you're not allowed to do it, it's prohibited. So that's why you can't burn the chametz. The chachamim can't be matir something that's awesome in ha-Torah. So here's the paradox. Because they can't be matir something that's awesome in ha-Torah, they don't let you burn it. You can't do what the Torah says to do. Why? Because it's muktzah. And yesh kayach b'yad chachamim to be oiker b'sheva al tasa. Ala kaifal of kliyat ha'erev. So there's only one eitzah. Just put a keli till the night. That's the second shitta. So what's the second shitta? The second shitta is that under all circumstances, you do not throw away the chametz because it's muktzah. Bir chametz is an isur. Bir chametz is what? Is an isur de oraisa, and muktzah is only an isur de rabbanon. The answer is the chachamim maintain their isur even b'makom of Torah if it's sheva al tasa. Burn it here, bring the fire here. That won't work. Why? Because you can't say mitoich shehutra l'tzayrich, hutra nami shaloi l'tzayrich, because shaloi l'tzayrich means you have some tzayrich in it. This tzayrich hayom, but here there's no tzayrich whatsoever, because min ha-Torah, you had an alternative. Because muktzah is only midrabanan. So Torah doesn't need you to make the fire and have the fire. So that would be superfluous. So that would be an active prohibition of shvisas Yom Tov on Torah. You're not allowed to do that. The Rabbanan can't say, we say be oiker adavim min ha-Torah. That halachically we don't say. They can only say sheva al tasa. So they don't allow you to cast it into the river because it's muktzah. They don't allow you to bring the fire here. Why? Because it's not them not allowing. Torah doesn't allow. So the only one eitzah, and the eitzah says, what should you do? You can't do anything. You kaifa kliyad erev. So now we come to the last point. So are you over by your rabbi Monsey? You're not over by your rabbi Monsey. So he says, Val shehiyazu shemashes chametz ad ha'erev. When you delay the chametz till the night, you leave it. Eino eva b'yirah b'yimase. You know why? Kivan shehu roitze levaray. He wants to get rid of it. Ela shechachamim moinem oisai. The sages stopped him. They told him, Muktzah, Muktzah, hareyu onus. He's onus. It's like somebody ties his hands behind his back, puts him in shackles, and say, Yoiva b'yirah b'yimatzeh. Onus rachmana patre. Somebody chas v'shalom doesn't have a hand. You don't say, oh, you over on tefillin. What are they supposed to do? Somebody's sitting in a hospital bandaged up. What are they supposed to do? Somebody doesn't have matzah on Pesach. They throw him into prison. They don't give him matzah. You're not mekayim the mitzvah, but honest rachmana patre. He says, I want to burn the chametz. The chachamim told me I can't because they made muktzah. I would go and take this chametz and throw it, flush it down my toilet. They're not letting me. Hareyu anus. V'lo yizira Torah b'yirah b'alimatzeh l'misha yesh b'yodei levayer. The prohibition of b'yirah b'alimatzeh, you only have it if you have the capacity. If you have the capacity to get rid of the chametz and you leave it in your house, then I say every moment that it's in your house, you're over. Here, I don't have the capacity. I would love to. So he says, you're not over by your motzei. So lepoyel mamish. They tell you you're not allowed to do muktzah. Why? Even though it's a isum min ha-Torah, because we're allowed to uproot something min ha-Torah b'shev al tazeh. But by doing that, they don't uproot anything from Torah. As a result of that, you don't lose anything from Torah. Because you're not even by your motzei lepoyel. You take a word mekayim tashbisu. So it's Shev al Tasa. But by your Yimotzi, you weren't over. That's a Gavaldik of art. So like the Shittas Haram, this last Nakuda, he brings the Kesef Mishnah, the Magen Avram says, you're not over because you're an onus. Why are you an onus? You would be happy to get rid of it. It's not like you're ignoring Torah. You can't. Why can't you? Because Muktzah. Why can't you bring a fire here? Because you're not allowed to burn something in a fire on Yom Tif if it's L'Loi L'Tzarech completely. Yeah? What do you want to ask?
Isn't it much more that Yusuf is only to you? Because in order to be over on the Baldur by Monsey, you need to have an ability to do beer. It says mashma from here, right? So it's easy if you just do women. It's not. There's no shak.
Well, we have a machloikas how to do beer chametz. Rabbi Yehuda says you have to do a fire, but the chachamim say you don't have to do a fire, and that's the halacha. You could crumble it and throw it into the ear, or you could crumble it and throw it into the river. You're right. Rabbi Yehuda Taka holds you only have to do streifa. So then you wouldn't be able Taka to do it through another method. And even then you have to know if that applies in the middle of Pesach after Zman Habir or not. But Lepoyel Mamish, since we paskin you could do through other methods, so therefore Minat Torah you can't do streifa on Yom Tif because you're Teves, because it's an inyan of Shaloi L'Tzarech Mamish.
Yeah, I had a Rabbi who said that he found a case of like Zisli that belonged to Pirchei.
Yeah.
So he said that they can use it. It belongs to Hagdish.
They could use it or leave it?
No, he said, no, they could use it after Pesach. They realized they found a case that they did that they didn't sell. You know, he said his wife wouldn't send his kids based on his Pesach, but he still passed him that way. Maybe that's it was on his Gemarah though. That makes sense?
Hektish.
He said it was the Shul's Bisli that belonged to Pirchei. And they found it after him, they realized that it was never sold.
The definition of hektish is the Beis HaMikdash, which is a prohibition to have a law from it. Doesn't mean other people's property or public property. This is more public property. I think it's a big difference. You understand what I'm saying? But you understood the svara? You hear the svara of Gemarah Charav?
You know, when it says that in Rashi that maybe with Rabbi Hudu said it that when you do B'dikas Chametz, then you're mevalkol the liboy.
Yeah.
Because the liboy means that that's your intention. In your heart, you want to be mevalkol it. So even if you didn't say like.
Good question. Good question. Rashi holds that bittul could be believe. He says it a few times.
Yeah.
But I have to do it. I have to do it believe. It can't be unconscious. It has to be a conscious process. You're right.
It's automatic.
It's not automatic. Believe means it has to be. The idea is it's coming from my lave.
Yeah.
It's about an internal awareness and mental state and consciousness, but it has to be conscious and active, even though it's not a ma'aseh b'yadayim or b'dibur. Reb Tzvi, hast verstanden?
Yeah, but
How about a chemical?
No.
We spray the chametz in your car.
No.
We destroy the chemical. No, you can't. Animals don't eat it.
Okay, so we'll see later what's the status, if it's possible achilas kelev, if even an animal can't eat it. We'll see later. In other words, once chametz is not edible completely, then it's a whole different status. The vart here is that the whole heter to make the fire and burn it is because it's tzarech hayom. But if it's not tzarech hayom, because minatayra you could use other alternatives, so then it becomes biblically prohibited. So how are you going to do it? You're going to tell me for tashbisu and bayira, I'm allowed to be over on Yom Tov? I'm not allowed to. It's an essay and a loisasa. So why should chametz be more powerful than shvisas Yom Tov? Getting rid of chametz and not having chametz is an essay and loisasa. Resting on Yom Tov, not doing malacha on Yom Tov is an essay and a loisasa. So why should chametz override Yom Tov? We explained before because you're allowed to burn it minatayra, but here I'm explaining that you're not allowed to burn it minatayra. So what am I left with? I don't have that option anymore. If I don't have that option anymore, it's out. What's my only option? Throw it into the river. That would work minatayra. That's good. My problem there is muktzah. Muktzah. Yesh koyach b'yad chachamim laker b'shav al tasa. Once my problem is muktzah, I'm on onus. Once I'm on onus, I'm not even on bayira Monsey. This is the shitta of the Rambam and the Shulchan Aruch and the Tur. That even if it's chametz that happened on Yom Tov and there was no bittul, you're allowed to put a kli on it, and you're good. You're good. At night you have to burn it. Or throw it into the river, whatever the method is. Beis hakisei, mefare v'zer l'ruach, matel l'yam. But by day, you just put a kli on it.
This class is brought to you by theyeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.